Chemistry is a mystery. Who knows what causes people to meet and connect? But one thing we do know, when it comes to couples who are different colors, different races, different cultural backgrounds, it can cause a lot of problems with family and friends and other close relationships. Now, research has shown that the only way a society changes is when there are some people who move away from the culture and they start doing things differently. But at the same time, there's always that force that keeps pulling them back. I wonder why that's so. This is Crossing Cultures, Changing Lives, and I'm Kitty Oliver. In this episode, we're going to look at some couples who have moved beyond the boundaries that society may have established for them racially, and we're going to see how they are building relationships. You can analyze a lot of things, including society. But how do you analyze the heart? Ed Gurewitz grew up in New York. His wife, Mattie, is from a small town in Georgia. In 35 years of marriage, the couple has dealt with family issues, racial matters, and major social change.
If we went down to Greenwich Village, there was no problem. People kind of look at you, but they didn't bother you or nothing. We went uptown to the east side, to the 80s, which today is probably a very avant-garde, and you have a lot of interracial couples. In those days, no, you would get looks, you would get stares. Nobody ever said anything that I could recall, but I know certain places that were not happy if we showed up together to go into. Theaters and stuff, they kind of look at you as, what are you doing here? Or walk away, people would. And I know eventually my parents dropped some of their friends because they would not invite us to their house, and they wouldn't invite my parents anymore to their house. From Mattie's side of the family, I never had any problems whatsoever. I think the cocoa butter was probably the cocoa butter that the blacks use, and this is some colognes and stuff. I think it was more for me was dietary. I mean, some of the food. I don't eat pork, and my wife would, and I eat kosher meat only. So my wife would cook, for me the kosher stuff, and I got to eventually enjoy collard greens and stuff. I would never have eaten it before. And grits became a novelty type of food for me.
How receptive was your son when you first got married?
Oh, he didn't want it at all. But then after he went on and he learned to love my husband very much, he called him Pop.
I could still think and feel that, somewhat was, how do you explain this man? And he would explain me as a stepfather, was the easiest. My grandchildren, as far as I know, don't use that term. And my great-grandkids, well, the oldest one is, as I say, is Randy, 6. I don't think he understands it.
A family is someone that is close, that have love for one another, and will stand for you no matter what happened.
My family is fairly small. I have one brother who lives in California. I have some cousins who I have not kept up with. For me, family is more on my wife's side of the family. And I think historically, the black community has always had an extended concept of family. So, and I kind of fit into that very nicely with maybe my personality or just what I like in things. But there's certain cultural differences, I think, that are out there. But I think once you're submerged in another person's culture, they don't become prevalent, or they don't mean anything eventually. Yeah. The only thing I can give advice to the other couples is don't let exterior pressures interfere with what you're doing. I mean, who you snore next to is your business. Not mommies, not papas, not the 3 neighbors that don't want to talk to you anymore. That's none of their business. It's your decision. It's your thing.
Because you love one another. That's the main thing, is the love. And to be together with one another.
Yeah.
Greg Hart and Clift August have a non-traditional relationship which crosses racial and generational lines. The Hollywood Center for Positive Living and their business ventures provide them with a supportive community, but learning how to deal with differences has been a common thread in both of their backgrounds.
if you're living in a small town in Vermont, it's probably not so easy to express yourself, especially when you're known within the entire community for your family for generations. So, Washington D.C. and Boston were the years where I came out and I was exposed to everything, I guess.
I actually grew up in a 3 red light town. It's called Kendall, Louisiana. There I experienced interracial dating, and I didn't see it as an issue until I noticed what I deemed as my friends basically making their points known.
I can't say that in meeting Cliff that difference has been significant. Maybe because when I met him, it was a certain point in my life where I'm a very strong person, and I don't have a lot of people in my world that are going to, at this point in my life, approve or disapprove of what I do and what I choose. My sexual orientation and all of that doesn't really have any bearing on my work. The social circles I travel in are people who are pretty evolved in terms of their understanding.
Between Greg and myself, I haven't noticed a breakdown in communication just due to our skin color. I would think where it may come up, and we definitely don't hear about it, would probably be along the lines of parenting, or the parents. Not so much as, Cliff, this is black and this is white, but Cliff, what about how's things going in the relationship? Is the communication going okay? Because in their minds, they may believe on some level that there should be some sort of difference in communication, whether that be race or even age, for that matter.
There's a challenge sometimes in communication because I can listen to his music. That's enough just right there. I'll get into the car and I'll say, oh my God. If anything, that's been our challenge, is to find common ground to talk about and resolve. And we've been pretty successful that way. So that's probably been the key issue to work through more than anything racial.
Social activism in college brought Isaac and Rama Carter together. However, negotiating the more subtle aspects of their African American and East Indian cultures in their daily lives has proven to be a lot more challenging than they expected.
I have to admit that nothing's been told to me directly. It's been in more indirect, subtle ways. More like, wow, you really ventured back to Africa, things like that. Wow, you really took a risk. Not much about, Isaac, or just, insinuating that you really either crossed the line or are willing to deal with something that can be very difficult in a cultural context. Going to weddings, very, very difficult for us. When he's in my cultural context, he's welcomed, first and foremost they'll say, hello, I am so-and-so, good to meet you, Isaac, and then that's about it. They don't welcome him any more than that. He often tells me that he feels invisible. He doesn't feel included. People tend to, even though they speak English, they tend to go back into their native language as, you're the other, we speak this language. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, I don't know, but it happens all the time. Whether it's in the family context or in the wedding, in the extended family, or even amongst friends.
I think you got to come to terms to a certain degree, and then on my side of it, I think it's a challenge when you, in a black community that's traditionally Christian, the thing we get, I guess, brought up the most is, well, she's Hindu. So what does that mean? And what is Kush gonna be? And that's our son. So it's done, in a way that makes you really wonder: is it really a big issue for your relationship, or is it really their issue? I think the more we talk about it and experience it, it's more other people's issue. Because we don't really argue about it or discuss it. It's not until someone brings it up and then one of us is feeling targeted, then it becomes a discussion item. May come up in jokes, but other than that, it doesn't come up. I think my family has tried to do what, some would say traditional black families may do in terms of being open and welcoming to. I'm the oldest child. I'm the firstborn, and they were all excited about me getting married, so they're very accepting. But then there's limits to the acceptance in terms of sometimes I feel they want her to conform to our cultural norms, and it's a constant negotiation of give and take, a try to say what norms you want to conform with and what norms you don't want to. Because I had to do the same thing on my side. What things I want on her side, what do I want to make an issue of, and what do I just say, yeah, no big deal. It's just for a few hours or for a couple of days. It's not really going to be the end all be all. They're in other locations. Far away. More when there's a concentration of one culture, then the norms tend to swing toward the dominant, whatever the group that has the most numbers, and then that's where you see the issues come up.
After we've been with family, either my family or his, we usually, not even usually, we have to come home and we have to talk. There's always an issue that comes out from there, whether it be diet, to religion, to cultural beliefs and values. We always have to come home and parenting. Parenting is a huge one. I don't know why I didn't think about that. And we always have to come home and renegotiate because we've either felt targeted and want to make it something that's more defined because maybe we didn't think about it. Or we want to have a conversation so that the next time we go out there, we're more of a united front than, feeling divided.
You have to map out a strategy for how to deal with your family. So when they say this, you got to say this. You got to do like preemptive, the phone call. So when we come home, we don't want to talk about these things anymore. That's a non-discussion item. I've had to call home and say, that's not a discussion item anymore. Like religion. Whereas my family grew up Christian, Rama becoming Christian or questioning Hindu is a non-discussion item. But I had to call to say that because I thought it would naturally occur, but it didn't actually occur. So you have to make a strategy and make a point of bringing up something that never really occurs to us because it's not. It's funny, when you raise Christian, you think about, God, some simple kind of commandments. Love everybody, treat everybody like you want to be treated. I don't know what the complication is.
For Isaac, it's mostly diet. He comes from a family that, has their cultural food, and we are, have been vegetarian for generations, and we don't understand eating meat. At least my parents don't, and it's always an issue. Isaac, you should eat more vegetables each time. Isaac, you should eat more vegetables. Are you eating more vegetables? Rama, is he? Is he? And it's sort of this, you think it's such a, small thing, but it becomes bigger and bigger, and it becomes annoying. I would say that it was more Isaac's values and beliefs and politics that attracted me, as opposed to his race. After having come from Africa, I didn't really have a lot of contact with the black community. I was in a predominantly Latin American Filipino community. So Isaac was, his cultural background wasn't a background that I was familiar with at all. I've done a lot of learning, and the learning curve has been really steep.